And this, my friends, is the trick that they use to steal your money. Hi guys, in today's video, what I wanted to do is go through the 5 types of property which I would never buy as an investment. Now, I wanted to get on the road, which I'm gonna do, and show you these properties to really hammer home the point that people do actually buy this type of property. And it might be for other reasons, which is fine, but if you are considering one of these types of property for an investment, you should stay away. So let's get onto the road. Behind me we have an example of an apartment in East Perth. Now, East Perth is an area which apartments are in demand. But in this particular location, these properties have a planning restrictions. What are planning restrictions? Basically, when the council approves a development, they put restrictions on each of the property's titles to limit what can be done. These restrictions can be a range of different things. It might mean that only it's for over 55 people. It might include being a short stay only property. So these apartments get sold and rented out, and I know for a fact that some of the tenants stay in there longer than 3 months, but the problem is that actually you're in breach of the planning requirements and the council can prevent you from doing this. All these things impact the value because this would limit the amount of buyers or potential buyers that are interested in this type of property. So for that reason, I am not interested in considering properties with planning restrictions. I'm out in Leeming for this bit and I'm surrounded by a cul-de-sac street, really nice homes, $500,000–$600,000. In fact, you'll see behind me that there's even some play equipment for these $600,000–$700,000 homes. So what is the type of real estate which you should never buy here, or the types of property which you should never buy? Well, that is lender restricted property. What do we mean by lender restricted property? Well, it's quite common for apartments that certain postcodes will be restricted by some lenders. And this means that if you go to that bank, they just won't lend in that particular area. The other thing is if the apartment size is under 50 square meters, the lender might not lend to it, or if it lacks a car bay again, the lender may choose not to lend to it. So the thing with postcode restrictions is it limits the amount of banks which are willing to lend on the property, and this limits the amount of buyers which can effectively buy your property. But if you've got an astute eye, you would ask me, hey Kent, there's no apartments behind you. What else do lenders restrict on? Well, they restrict on regional towns. This is not a regional town. But the other thing they're starting to restrict more and more on is high tension power lines. And lenders, mortgage insurers won't insure on them, which means that people that need to buy in this particular area need to have a deposit of at least 20% in order to be able to purchase properties close to the high tension power lines. And for that reason, even though you get a discount on the way in, you're often trading that off for a bigger discount on the way out. I shouldn't have got here. I've just driven down this road by the power lines thinking it services them, but it's turned into a pedestrian walkway, and then I realise now I've got to reverse back down it because there's all this soft sand here, so I can't do a U-turn. So I'm just going to go back 500 metres or so and try and get out of this place. The next type of property which I would never buy is large strata complexes that are getting older with lots of amenities, and amenities are things like pools and gyms. As strata properties get older, more and more things tend to break, and if there's more and more amenities, there's more and more likelihood that things are going to break. So if you come into a strata complex where there's lots of things that could break and there's no maintenance being done, this means that you're going to be coming up with special strata budgets to fix all of these problems. The other thing with large strata complexes is that it's often too much value in the building to justify selling off the land to a developer, knocking it down and starting from scratch. When you buy any investment, you're buying a land component and you're buying a building component. But with a large strata complex over many stories, almost all of the value is in the building and the building depreciates. The other thing from the rental side is when you are an investor in one of these complexes, there is no differentiation between product. This means that when you bring your 2x2 apartment to the market for rent with the exact same spec as all the other 100 investors in the complex that have a 2x2 apartment, you're going to be waiting for a long period of time before all the other stock clears out. And guess what? Guess what? If other buyers or other investors are more motivated than you to get a tenant, they drop their rent, meaning that there is a downward pressure on rents when all these brand new complexes come to market. And while I have you as a captive audience on this drive, the other thing which I will remind you to do is go down there and hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, and throw me a comment about the other types of real estate that you might be interested in knowing more about. The next type of property which I would never buy is property investments that have been introduced to me through a middleman. What is a middleman? Well, basically it's a spruiker who for free tells you or finds you the best possible investment property. Guess what? It's not actually free. What's happening is they're getting a commission from a builder or developer to sell you an overinflated property. Nowadays, free advice is actually a little bit more hidden. What they do is they charge you a nominal amount up front or a small amount that gets you hooked, and then a couple of weeks later they give you that property investment where they get the bulk of their commission. The other thing they would do is sell you a course, or it's also common to get a referral from an accountant or a financial planner, because property you can still receive massive commissions for referrals. Now, why is free property investment advice bad? Well, first things first is there is a lot of costs when you buy a property brand new that you don't actually pay on established properties. For example, you'll pay the builder's developer's margin, you'll pay the commission to the person who sells it to you, you also pay council contributions, the funding costs for the development, and finally the government gets their slice with GST. All these things add up, and this is why it's quite common with brand new properties that you don't develop to have negative equity. These groups often use high pressure sales tactics. They talk a lot about depreciation and the benefits or tax benefits that you get for new property. And they also discuss government schemes such as NRAS or other ones to help you boost your cash flow. But ultimately, they're just recommending a brand new property. So if there's ever a recommendation for a brand new property, I would be a little bit concerned. The other thing these groups do is they recommend properties that are interstate, and there are two reasons for this. Firstly, interstate property markets are hard to judge when you don't come from that state. So if they tell you it's booming and you must buy now, this can be misleading. You can be easily tricked. So if they tell you it's booming and you must buy now, because you're not from that state, you can only trust them. The second thing they do, and this is why I brought you out to Cannington, one of the tricks that they actually do to maximize their return is they find sites located in areas that not even the local buyers would buy. This means they can buy the land really cheap. What they can then do is, if you're an interstate buyer, is show you a median price graph of the area, and you think that you're getting a discount because you're buying into this cheap new property distressed of a developer. Anyway, but guess what? That interstate buyer can't actually conduct any form of due diligence, and they don't really know how bad the actual location of this particular property actually is. I was just going to talk. This, my friend, this is one of the exact locations those groups have used. This is the exact corner location that one of these groups have recommended to their investors. And this, my friends, is the trick to how they take your money. The next type of property which I would never buy is property that is overcapitalized. What does overcapitalized property actually mean? Basically, if you're in an area and the property is at the top of the price point for that particular area, it is more than likely overcapitalized. How do properties get overcapitalized? Well, there's a common different couple of ways. Firstly, they're a display home, meaning that they have all the specifications in the house, and when other homes are built in the area, they are not built to that same level of specification. That would be overcapitalized. Other ways properties can be overcapitalized is that they're built too big for the area. So there is an example behind me. And the final way is in new estates within established areas. What often happens in infill estates is they require a premium to develop the property, and they sell the properties for a premium. So even though the suburb as a whole has the same name, the other properties which are sold in that particular estate are sold at a higher price point. What's the problem with a overcapitalized house? Well, firstly, in this example behind me, we're in Belmont. So Belmont's median price point is somewhere between $400,000 to $500,000. This particular property behind me is trying to fetch in excess of $870,000. This is 2 times the median price point for this particular area. Now, the reason why they're trying to fetch that premium is because the property's brand new, it's large, and it's built in a newer estate. But the problem is buyers in that particular price point are actually looking in Rivervale or Ascot or in adjoining suburbs that are considered a bit more of a premium area. The second thing is that property's price will always be dragged down towards the median price point. Whereas if you buy below the median price point, the property's price would be dragged up by the median price point. The final thing with overcapitalized properties is they're often at a higher price point. With higher price property, you're generally getting a lower rental yield, and also it takes a longer period of time for these properties to sell because there are less buyers in that price point. Now you know the 5 different types of property which I would never buy. This is property with planning restrictions. This is blacklisted areas from a funding perspective. This is properties that have been introduced to me through a middleman. Or it might be properties that are in large strata complexes. And finally, it's properties that are overcapitalized. So until you find your great next property investment or my next video, best of luck and goodbye.